Hello everyone, this is Ohio Dan. The title or topic for this video is Learning How You Operate. And this is going to be one of those videos that goes into my Life 101 series, where I talk about things that I wish I had known in my teens and early to mid-20s instead of learning these types of things somewhat the hard way later on. And this is the type of video where I hope that I can reach people that are younger, especially where this helps them figure out kind of what makes sense in life. But in this video, I think it's particularly important. It's one of the more important topics, I think, in this series, where you need to do whatever works for you in life. You need to figure out what can allow you to meet your goals, what it is that motivates you, what you find value in, and learn to discard the things that other people tell you you're supposed to value, or the things other people tell you you ought to do that you've tried, but you know that they don't actually work for you. You've got to come to an understanding of what works for you and what doesn't. And that takes time anyway. The only way to really do that is through your own experiences. But nonetheless, you shouldn't continue to do things that you know don't work for you based on your personality, based on your intelligence, based on your skill set, right? You need to find what actually works for you as an individual and let go of the things that you know don't work for you. And I'm going to give some examples that are kind of personal to an extent on that. And I'm going to talk about the types of issues that this can affect. Right? One of the most important fundamental aspects of navigating through life is learning how you personally operate. And this involves a lot of trial and error when you're younger. Even for people that are younger that are listening to this video now, you're still going to have to go through trial and error. You're going to have to determine what psychologically motivates you toward reaching your goals versus the things that don't motivate you, the things that don't work. But it's something that you can figure out over time, and it's actually pretty important. Because without going through this process, you're basically going to be working with someone else's script, or you're going to try to do the things that you're told to do that may not lead to any sort of satisfaction or fulfillment for you as an individual. Especially, it's important to learn which strategies work for you and which don't through your experiences. So an important part of this process is realizing that other people usually don't understand how this works for you as a unique individual. They're looking at it from their own personal perspective. And Stardust and others have talked about this in the past, already made good content on this, how most people try to give advice that doesn't necessarily fit well with anybody that's of a different personality type, or that has a totally different perspective, or has a totally different set of circumstances. Even the things that I have said on my channel, if it's not going to work for you, I'm not going to be offended if you reject it, because some of the stuff I say may not work for you. That's just how it is. People give advice from their own perspective and not your own personal way of looking at things, not when it comes to your abilities or lack of abilities in a certain area. People will give you advice and assume a whole bunch of things while they project that advice onto you, and that's not necessarily going to lead to something you can use in every case. People will make assumptions about how they operate, and again, they'll project that onto you as if it's just going to work for everyone, and a lot of the time it just doesn't work out that way. Or they assume that you fit into some sort of vanilla blueprint of how people are supposed to function, right? Sort of an ideological, motivated perspective, which may not work out for you. For example, traditional conservatives that think that you as a young man should just work your butt off because it may have worked for them in the past when they were young, but then not seeing the big picture of how younger men are being taken advantage of in those cases, and how it's pretty unrealistic to have a family, have a house, have a nice car. I mean, you can do some of those things for yourself, but to build a life around accomplishing those goals, older men may say that's what you need to do and just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and all that. But to a large extent, you're not going to get any fulfillment from that. And it's not going to benefit you anyway in a lot of cases, because of the nature of our culture and our society and our economy and so forth. That's just one example. I'm going to give other examples in this video, as I mentioned, that kind of apply to me personally, that I think fit into this theme, fit into this message that I'm trying to provide here. In truth, only you can know how you operate and what mindset you need to have to make progress on whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Other people don't really know that at a first-hand level the way that you do. Therefore, it is essential to learn how you operate personally in order to assess which advice may work for you and which ideas can't be incorporated into your lifestyle, regardless of what may or may not work for other people. Some strategy of happy wife, happy life, right? As long as that marriage stays together, a man might find fulfillment in that for a while, at least at a superficial, thin level. But if it doesn't blow up in his face, that might work. But if you're self-aware as a guy and you realize that that's actually not very healthy, that that's probably not something you want to get involved in, you could argue it's not healthy for any man. But just assuming that that's the only thing that makes that guy get up in the morning is making his wife happy from his point of view, that's an example, right? You don't necessarily want to disrupt that because that may cause more problems for him than it's worth dealing with because he's already in that situation. That doesn't mean that you need to put yourself in that situation as a guy where you're in a marriage where she's the boss and now basically everything you do is based around keeping her satisfied. That's not a good situation to be in, but nonetheless, that might work at a superficial level for some men. I know it wouldn't work for me. I'm not willing to do that to myself. So there are many other examples that I could give personally. One thing about me is that I need to maintain focus and be disciplined with how I go about things. Some people are able to just have this, let's just do what I want through the day and sort of half-ass everything and not really be focused, but just make things work out by at least showing up to work or at least doing part of what I said I was going to do. Basically, this sort of nonchalant way of doing things. Some people seem to make that work. To be more specific, I'm going to listen to music while I do the work that's required of me. That type of thing. Some people are perfectly fine with that. They can listen to music, they can multitask, they can be distracted and still meet the demands of them. I can't do that. I know I have to be focused. I don't want distractions. I don't want BS. My way of limiting stress is to not have the distractions. I can be focused on something that might be difficult, but I'm not going to get too stressed out about it as long as I can focus on that thing. But when there's other nonsense or BS going on around me that I don't want to have anything to do with, that is when it becomes a problem. Or even something that I might enjoy on different occasions where I'm not trying to focus on something. That might be great when I'm relaxing or whatever, but for the most part, it's just going to be annoying to me. I don't need distractions. I'm not someone that does well with that. I've learned that about myself. I've learned that I do better by far when I can focus on the task at hand 100% pretty much, rather than have a bunch of stuff going on around me that's driving me nuts. A lot of people seem to be able to do that though. I don't know whether it's more of a type B personality type of thing or whether it's just a male versus female thing. I've heard that women are better at multitasking, men are better at focusing. Whatever the case may be, I don't do well with that. I don't want nonsense going on if I'm going to focus on anything. And I've learned that about myself through trying to do that in the past. It's never worked out well. I always do a crappy job of things compared to when I'm actually focused and concentrating on the task at hand. Another example, and this is kind of similar, but it has different ramifications. Stoicism tends to work pretty well for me. Stoicism helps me maintain that focus. It helps me not be distracted by my own inner thoughts and feelings that are irrelevant to whatever it is I'm trying to do as well. Again, I'm better off doing things that maintain focus on the task at hand, but also I know if I get too frustrated, if something pisses me off too much, I need to take a step back in a lot of cases, or at the very least, become aware of that and suppress those feelings and just be focused on what I need to do. Some people, again, this might be kind of a male-female thing to a degree. I'm sure that it is to some extent. they express their emotions openly and they go along with their feelings, and that actually helps them. It energizes them to do the things they need to do, and they're able to combine those things in a way that leads to their success. I am not one of those people. I am much better off being stoic. I'm much better off finding a way to mitigate strong feelings and emotions when I'm trying to do anything. Things work out better for me when I don't get upset, when I don't get frustrated. And if it gets to a point where I'm getting that way, then I better find something else to do for a while. That's what works better for me. Not, well, I'm just going to do everything based on expressing my emotions. If I get frustrated, I'm just going to let it out. That doesn't work well for me. People can talk about being emotionally intelligent and all that as much as they'd like. I don't know whether you guys are the same way, but that's not something that leads to a positive result for me. I would rather not have to deal with those strong emotions and stay focused and be stoic, be disciplined, not act based on the feelings, but accept how I feel at some level while still maintaining my concentration on whatever's going on, whatever it is I need to be doing. That works better for me. More of a relationship or dating type of thing. If I were to date or be in a relationship, and this kind of helps me have this monk mode mentality at a personal level, I don't want to just bang random women. Maybe my personality would have been different if I had been Chad, but even if I woke up tomorrow and I was Chad millionaire, I don't want to share that with some woman that I barely know. I don't operate that way, right? I've had not really situations where girls have just come up to me, because women really don't do that unless you are Chad. But I've had situations where it's like there was just no connection. There was a woman that I may have found physically attractive, but as soon as she started talking, that attraction went away pretty quickly. There have been many situations like that where there's no way that I would want to share that intimacy with someone else. And part of it has to do with the experiences that I've had with my ex-girlfriend. I really regret sharing a lot of what I shared with her. And I don't necessarily mean anything just strictly perverted by that, but just having that level of closeness with her and having her do some of the things she did later on. I don't know that she cheated on me, but I found out that I was basically her backup guy. I figured it out over time as I became red-pilled, so to speak. And I know that that's another reason that's not related to society as it's constructed today for why I really don't want to seek out a relationship. To me, sharing myself like that with someone requires trust. It requires knowing that person well. It requires having a connection. And so I know I'm not interested in just meeting random women, regardless of the state of affairs between men and women today, right? Even if everything improved drastically tomorrow, I'm not interested in just meeting random women. That's weird to me. Trying to approach things that way is not going to work for me. Trying to share that type of thing with women that I barely know, I know that that's not who I am. Other guys, a lot of men, they'd take full advantage of that and they'd be able to make that work for them. And as long as they didn't get a disease or get an accusation against them, they'd be fine with that. I have no interest in that. Even if things drastically change tomorrow to where men can more or less get away with that, that's something that I know really just isn't consistent with what I would want. And so I've learned these types of things. I'm not trying to make some sort of narcissistic diatribe out of this. My personal self is the best example I can use here. But you guys, I'm sure, have a variety of other experiences. There's a lot of things that you could say about yourself in terms of what you've discovered. That's really what's important here. It's not what other people tell you you need to do, what you have to do. It's not other people looking at things strictly from their perspective and assuming that you're the same way and giving you the advice to do the same thing they did. It's recognizing who you are based on, hey, I tried this, I didn't like it very much. I tried this other thing, it worked out a lot better. I'm going to go with what works. I'm going to go with what actually has led to my success in different ways in the past. I'm going to abandon all the stuff that I know doesn't apply to me in any sort of useful way. And I'm not going to worry about what other people think about that. I'm just going to do me, and other people can be on board with that, or they can F off if they want to have objections to it. And I'm not trying to go into like the moral aspect of this, right? There's still such a thing as right and wrong. I'm not saying, hey, I'm okay with cheating on my partner, so I'm going to do it anyway because that feels right to me. No, I mean, there are moral considerations, but along with developing yourself in terms of having a moral understanding of the world, you still figure out through that context what actually works for you, what actually makes sense, what's actually something that you can do based on your personality and your abilities, and what's something that you probably can't do. You would never be able to do things using a particular strategy. It depends, right? It depends on who you are. Some people are really good at networking and they thrive on that. Other people are better off honestly just doing things as an individual and just having small groups of friends. You learn all these kinds of things about yourself, but the important part is that as you go through this trial and error process, in my view, you really need to be able to just discard the things that don't work. If you've tried something once or twice and you know that it doesn't give you what you want, then don't do it again, right? Focus on the things that actually work for you, regardless of what anyone else may say on the matter and what anybody else says your strategy ought to be. Develop your own strategies for life. Learn how you operate and make that work for you on your own terms instead of listening to other people's advice that may not be good for you, even people that you may be close to in life, in your family or in your friendship circles or whatnot. If they don't really know what they're talking about in terms of what you can do or can't do, then you don't really have to take it seriously. Learn how you operate and develop the strategies that you use in life on that basis, and discard the stuff that you know is not going to function and is not going to give you what you need, compared to the things that you know actually work for you based on who you are as an individual.